All right, we're going to get started a little early, a few seconds early, but I think we have a lot of interesting topics to cover, so starting early will help. First of all, I want to thank you to the audience for coming here, especially after lunch, for trooping down here. We got a big room. Hopefully, we'll see more people. Just a little bit of introduction about myself. My name is Sonny Kogan. I'm product marketing manager for the SD-WAN products with Citrix. Before joining Citrix, I spent some time in the security industry. I was with Fortinet, where I was responsible for the virtualized version of their next-gen FortiGate and also their DDoS product. But I spent a lot of time, and most of my career has been built around wireline, MPLS, networking, basically. I'm through and through service provider networking guys. I spent about 8 years with Ericsson in their mobile core group. And their product was built on technology that they acquired from a company called Redback. I was with Redback, and Redback was a pioneer in a BRAS system that evolved into a BRAS and MPLS. So what we have today, what we're going to discuss is about managed SD-WAN. I think we have a really good panel of speakers here with really diverse background that can give you many different perspectives and weigh the pros and cons from their insights. First was Chris. Chris is with Vein Clinics, a healthcare company. As you know, Citrix has always been very, very strong in the healthcare industry. And so he's representing the voice of a customer. And then in the middle, we have Ruth Hunt. He came all the way across the Atlantic. So we have customer, Citrix partners and customer from both sides of the pond here. So hopefully you get a global view of things. Now he's going to represent KPN ICT Consulting. As you know, KPN, if I'm not mistaken, the largest.
We're the largest. We're owned by KPN, which is the largest telco within the Netherlands.
Okay. But also, he is going to share his experience because he recently rolled out a 22-site SD-WAN upgrade for a healthcare customer as well. You're going to see the network profile between US and Europe dramatically different. And then we have Ernie. Ernie is a MSP, very, very visionary MSP. He's been a really good partner of Citrix, so he knows, the way I joke about it, he knows the deep universe of SD-WAN that sometimes I don't know about. So he will share some of his insights that way, okay? Now, if I may hand it off to you, Chris, to introduce a little bit about yourself and VCA and why you chose Citrix SD-WAN to begin with.
Yeah, great. Chris Flores, again, VCA. I've been working with Citrix, I think, from probably about 1998, Citrix Metaframe days. I kind of hesitate to admit that, but I've been around for a while. We have about 65 clinics across the country and are connected with an older 1.5 meg MPLS network. So over the last 2 years, we've been seeing our performance and our user experience has really been less than stellar. Yeah. We attribute that mostly to the rise of SaaS applications that we have in use in the clinics, and also just the business critical apps that we have just require more bandwidth and more speed. So to resolve that issue, we decided to look at it from 2 different perspectives. The first was to really maximize our use of Citrix as an application delivery platform and really get all the clinics using Citrix to kind of minimize the bandwidth needs. So that was the first way we were going to solve it. And the second part is really have to address our aging WAN infrastructure and take a look at what we're going to do. By a show of hands, how many people have been contacted by more than one vendor about an SD-WAN solution?
Okay.
Everybody, right? It got so bad, I think I went to Starbucks and ordered a triple venti latte, and the barista said, "Do you want to try SD-WAN's, the Starbucks SD-WAN solution on the side?" So it became clear that as part of our strategy, SD-WAN was going to play a role. And then the question really was, whose SD-WAN do you pick, right? There's so many different choices out there. And as we looked into things, we noticed Citrix had a solution. And as we dove into it more deeply, it really hit all of the different bases for us. Ease of deployment, the fact that it optimizes the ICA HDX protocol natively,
Yeah.
Being able to just really more in a granular way shape our network traffic were all huge pieces for us. So that was really the reason we decided to do that. And so we work with CenturyLink is the company that we partnered with to do our communication lines, and then working with Citrix for the SD-WAN solution.
Great. Now if I can hand it off to you, Ruud.
Yeah, Ruud Hunt. I'm a modern workspace architect at KPN ICT Consulting. Even though there's workspace in my name, I'm only doing networking. So
It's that good, huh?
Yeah.
European thing.
Yeah. We are seeing a lot of Citrix at our customer base, and we are modernizing a lot of workspaces for our customers, and what we were seeing is that there was a real need for more bandwidth, but not investing into MPLS. So that's why we chose Citrix SD-WAN as the SD-WAN solution, primarily because, first of all, the integration with Citrix is just phenomenal, straight out of the box, but also the partnerships that they have with Microsoft on Azure, Zscaler, and just all the major vendors out there, which for our customers is really important that they can integrate with others without having to invest in other things.
Okay, thank you. Ernie, why do you choose to partner and become a Citrix SD-WAN certified MSP?
It's a great question. Everything these two guys just said is why we chose Citrix. Also, Citrix has a great partner management system, great partner portal, great name. I mean, everybody's here because of the Citrix name and the products. And then it's global. We're a global managed services provider. So we chose a company like Citrix because of that. And then what we bring Citrix is the whole managed services piece that we can layer on top of their products, and we do it globally also.
Awesome.
So, you know, we really love Citrix from the other thing that Chris talked about was basically the superior solution that Citrix has in the SD-WAN space. We saw that at a Southeast home retailer going up against other SD-WAN solutions, and it won hands down. The solution picked it. And before you go on, how many people are here from networking? Are you app devs or network? Okay, how many people are looking at SD-WAN? How many people have bought SD-WAN? There you go. Okay, thank you.
So thank you, Ernie. So, you know, prior to us moving, I just want to say deep thank you for supporting Citrix and for the time that you spent going through selection of topics and reviews. So I really appreciate it. So if the audience can give a quick clap of hands for, I'd really appreciate it. All right. So the first one, the way I divide up this, I only have just 3 slides for this presentation. We're going to discuss about what do they consider for the network infrastructure. So how does it look like? How did it look like before? How is it looking like now? And then after that, the application experience. You know, SD-WAN, the whole promise about SD-WAN is that it is one of the first early networking products that has application awareness. The intelligence of SD-WAN is to accelerate application. So the coupling of application and networking now is so tight, right? That's what SD-WAN brings to the table. And then the third one is equally important, is to talk about deployment and management. After you deploy this, how do you manage? And the last one is what are their success metrics and their outcomes? I think that's the most interesting one. So if I can start with you, Chris, is this pretty much the way you built your network? You have Citrix in the data center and then a diverse transport and then several branches. How many branches there are?
Yeah, absolutely. We have about 65 clinics across the country. Each of those branches backhaul back to a colo facility in the Midwest. And then we also have a separate data center in our corporate office that we also access. And the way it works, we really have 100 megs at the colo facility, and actually 200 at the colo facility and 100 at the corporate office. But each of the clinics really have a 1.5 meg connection as their primary MPLS connection, which is a pretty lean pipe, right, to be able to do that. And over the years, it's served us pretty well, but clearly we had to make a change. We backed up that connection with originally DSL connection, because we were just trying to protect that 1.5 megs. But then over time, as the business class internet propagated, we upgraded all those connections and really took a look at the network and said, hey, we've got all this bandwidth on the broadband side that we really don't have a good way to be able to aggregate and use. And so as part of this project, the goal was to say, how do we aggregate all of that bandwidth and really be able to use all of it for our business critical applications. For us, at first we wanted to maybe make MPLS go away. For us, I don't think MPLS is going to go away because, again, here it's the only way that we're going to get that SLA and that constant, the circuit that we can rely on. But I don't want to grow it as fast as I can grow the cheaper broadband. So for us, our plan is to move that 1.5 meg MPLS to a 5 meg fiber product, and then really lean on the broadband connections that we have to aggregate that bandwidth so that we can change our 1.5 meg MPLS into an SD-WAN network that gives us 20 to 25 megs depending on the connection. And same thing on the data center, we're going to try to aggregate all that bandwidth to be able to move back and forth. Initially, the sites that we've rolled out so far are seeing a big increase even without getting that MPLS upgraded to 5 megs. Just being able to use their broadband traffic and have it really be application aware has increased performance dramatically at each one of those clinics that we've rolled out so far.
What's interesting here is that, are you beginning to see price erosion in MPLS?
MPLS prices just continue to rise. That's all that keeps happening. And so our goal here is to try to keep that down as much as we can. But I think for things like time to market, the other thing for us, we talked about the copper issue. Here in the US, copper is the fastest way that I can get a circuit installed in one of the clinics. So if I'm opening a new clinic, I might have to lean on that copper connection just to get up and running. And then maybe over 3 to 6 months as I get my broadband connection in, I can turn that down and switch things over.
Got it.
The Citrix solution is great because it just takes all different comers. It doesn't matter. You plug it into the SD-WAN solution and it just uses the circuit.
It runs as an overlay.
Exactly.
And the underlay can be anything. It's sort of an over the top.
So the ease of installation is really, really simple. You don't have to change a bunch of routing rules, deploy a lot of different equipment, basically just plug it in.
So how many sites do you connect to your data center where the Citrix application resides?
So it's 65 clinics right now. We're in a growth pattern, so that number is going to, I'm sure, get bigger as time goes on pretty rapidly. So it's right now 65 different clinics. We have currently about a third of them are rolled out, so we have about 20 rolled out today.
Okay. And you mentioned that you also have WAN op. What's the use of WAN op for?
Yeah, so our thought was, originally we had riverbed devices, and so we did have some WAN optimization to all the different clinics. Our thought was the models we deployed are the 210s at the clinics, which don't have WAN optimization, but we have WAN op at the colo facility and at the corporate office, because our feeling is we have a larger congregation of users there that'll probably benefit from some of that WAN optimization. So we're going to deploy WAN op at those two facilities, and then as the need arises at the clinic, we can always deploy that as we decide.
Which appliance do you use in your data center?
So the 2100 premium at the data center and at the corporate office.
Got it. That's perfect. Got it. All right. How about you, your customer, Ruth? Can you share a little bit the before and after?
Yeah, we've recently finished a project with SD-WAN for one of our healthcare customers, and they had this classical hub-spoke design, all based on MPLS, and they were running out of bandwidth because from all their branch offices, they were both doing the users, but also giving clients Wi-Fi access, backhauling everything back to the data center. They have a large Citrix virtual apps and desktops in their data center, and they were really in a need where they needed more bandwidth. So the other thing was that they also needed to add security on their branch offices because they were now directly connected to the MPLS connection. So we did a POC with them for Citrix SD-WAN, and we looked at their network and we just deployed it as is, and they were really happy with it, so we started spinning up.
Okay.
So in total we do 20 locations now for them. And they are using the integrated firewall in the branch offices to secure local internet breakout because they didn't want to backhaul any client traffic or recreational traffic back to their data center. They just wanted to go out just through the internet connection. Because really they were facing the issue like, well, we're creating more data, so we either upgrade our MPLS connections.
I got more questions on that later.
Okay.
Well, what happened if the recreational traffic is a must-have,
Yeah.
Like,
so instead of just upgrading their MPLS connections and just start paying more, they used SD-WAN to aggregate already their local internet because also some branch managers started to do their shadow IT with local internet lines.
Okay. So You shared with me last time you were under pressure to turn on a few sites, right? And you use SD-WAN as the answer for a quick time to market. Can you share that?
Yeah, when we were doing this project, then all of the sudden projects never go to plan. They came up with, we have a site that has to be brought up, and we had an expected delivery date of our internet lines, but they cannot make it, and it has to go live. So what we have done is that we took an 410, connected 4 LTE routers to it to have a total combined capacity of 120 megs for that location, so that they could just make their delivery date. And
all you can eat LTE.
yeah.
Oh. Okay, very European.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Ernie, you know, one thing that I think was interesting is how your company offers service assurance in terms of service level commit and service level target. You know, now that's something that's always been the bread and butter as part of the agreement of MPLS. How has it evolved now at the dawn of SD-WAN here?
Yeah. So let me give you the punchline. If you pick broadband, you don't get an SLA, right? Everybody, I see the head shaking, right? So the way we do it is if you buy the broadband from us, we will give you SLAs around the way we treat that, call out the broadband provider, all that good stuff. If you have MPLS, as Chris does, then we still pass those SLAs. We manage those SLAs for you. If we provide it for you, we'll sign up for it, including credits, right? Because SLAs have penalties and credits. If you provide it, then we'll manage it for you around the treatment again. Right, so the first thing we do as a managed services provider, we look at each other and say, what is our service level commitment to all customers? And that's our baseline. And we'll provide that to anybody who walks along and give you that. And then that will turn into an SLA as a basic or standard. But then most customers either do one of two things, say, no, this is what I need, this is what I want, and then we'll generate that for you along with all the legal agreement. Or you'll give an RFP that says we need something like this. So one of the things we did for a large bank was we signed up for SLAs on broadband. But guess what number we used? 80% availability, right?
Okay.
Because broadband is so bad. So if I leave you with anything on the SLAs, ask for everything you want, work with your managed services provider to see what they will and will not provide, and then talk to us about, well, if I provide the circuits, what will you do? If you provide me, the MSP, as a broadband ag, or providing an MPLS, what will you sign up for? And you'll get a good answer. And the main thing to do with there is make sure you get the credits that you want. But one of the ones we had, somebody wanted 20% back per month if they didn't make it. We told them, hey, if we're doing that bad, we're in breach of contract, so be reasonable on the SLAs. But it is changing to where you are going to select non-guaranteed circuits. The good news is this, SD-WAN loves that, and I have plenty of network engineers, and probably some of you in here will agree, that broadband solves most performance problems. If you have a lot of bandwidth, you got a gig, you're probably not going to have performance problems. So that's the wave in thinking now. That's what we're going to ride and see how it works. And as an MSP, we'll be there to work with you in SLAs.
All right, so good perspective on network infrastructure. Now, the most important part, at the end of the day, it's about the application experience of the user. That's what SD-WAN brings to the table. For example, like our SD-WAN can natively recognize 4,500 applications in the box itself, right? And then it will know how to treat the traffic. Different applications have got different characteristics, different requirements. Some applications require real-time treatment, very sensitive. Some applications are just bulk traffic, consume a lot of bandwidth, but not latency sensitive. And another one could be somewhere in the middle, you know, latency sensitive, but it doesn't really require real-time treatment. So, Chris and Ruud here will share perspective that typically they can group the workspace environment into 4 type of applications. One is a Citrix apps. The other one is medical record. The other one that's beginning to grow is access to SaaS applications. And then another one that's must-have, and this is a change in fundamental philosophy in IT, is that video now, IT doesn't have an option to say no. IT needs to say yes if they want to make customer happy. And we'll hear from them why that is. So you have the mission critical applications here, right? You have the recreational traffic down here, and how do you use the embedded capability, the intelligence of our SD-WAN in the ICA protocol, we started the ICA protocol, to recognize granularly and deep down into the packet level and say, I think this application requires this kind of treatment. Now, there are two ways to do it. You can do it through a brute force by manual quas, or you can actually do it on the fly, okay? And let's start with, let's start with you, Chris. How do you do it? What can you share?
There's so many things I like about the SD-WAN product. It's hard to say that there's just one thing that's the best thing. But one of the things that we're really excited about is being able to really prioritize the traffic based on application. Because that way we pick our mission critical applications and we say, listen, if there's enough bandwidth to satisfy those, then we can look at some of the other features. If not, then we can't. We added this YouTube figure here because 3 or 4 years ago, if the docs came to me and said, hey, we need to look at YouTube videos, I'd be like, come on, you want to look at YouTube videos, you don't have to. What we see now is there's so many business partners that we have that really have legitimate business content that they're streaming on YouTube. So it's a reasonable request that a doctor might want to be able to take a look at a procedure video, a new application, a new device on YouTube. And in the past, I didn't really have a good way to be able to answer that question. I either had to turn it on or turn it off. And so mostly I had to say no. Where now I can at least look at them and say, okay, how about maybe? So that if there's enough bandwidth and all the mission critical applications are satisfied, you can go ahead and look at the YouTube videos. If for whatever reason it's a high traffic time and we're needing the traffic to go to the mission critical apps, the YouTube is going to suffer. And so what we do is we basically set up the non-critical apps as really best effort, and every other application has the most bandwidth. And so it really is an interesting way to solve that problem, and it takes us out of the role of having to constantly be saying no. I know in the IT department, the business users hate to come to us because we always say no, and then we get the dark IT where we have doctors putting in their own interconnection so that they can go ahead and do things on the side. So it really gave us a way to answer that question.
So how do you accelerate delivery of patient records? Let's say if there's a contention in bandwidth.
Yeah, so right now, again, we take those applications and we're changing things a little bit so that we're really trying to put more of that into the shared hosted desktop. And so as we do that, it really becomes about just prioritizing the HTX or the ICA traffic. And in the meantime, our application that we use right now it's a Chrome browser app. So we have a certain port that it uses, and we're giving priority over to that port. So again, we just pick those mission critical applications and give them the highest priority, and then everything else is best effort.
Awesome. Okay. How about you, Ruud? You have a very interesting network infrastructure scenario here.
So our healthcare customer is both serving their business users as they are using the infrastructure for their clients that are visiting on site. And that can be maybe for a few hours, some stay for a week. And because they're using the same infrastructure, you do not want those users impacting the business, where in the past it would. With SD-WAN, we can granularly see what kind of traffic is flowing through the network, and we can assign priority. So what we have done is we did a POC with them for 2 or 3 months, and we first classified all the traffic because I saw a lot of hands with network engineers. How many knows exactly what is flowing through the WAN? That was also their problem.
Right.
Okay.
So we first did the POC to see okay, what kind of traffic is there and what needs to be prioritized, because they use virtual apps and desktops, but they're also using local clients with mission critical apps.
Can I ask you a question? So do you use the tool that you use in order to see what's flowing through the network? Do you use our management analytics?
Yes, we're using
to see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's available
Yeah.
as part of the package of our management system.
So it gave really great insight, and we were able to make rules for the customer based on this is the highest priority, this is lower. And for just recreational traffic, we're just saying you can use the bandwidth if it's available. If it's not, we just throttle it down. They only get maybe like 5% of the total available bandwidth. And in the past, where they would also have issues with VoIP, they're a heavy user of VoIP. All those issues went away because we prioritize VoIP as one of the highest business traffics. they have no issues with VoIP anymore. And they were really surprised because they saw a demo here, I think it was last year, where someone pulled the cable of an SD-WAN on the main stage. And they also said, well,
Okay.
we have a video conferencing, so let's
So what
just try it.
happened in this scenario? Let's say, you know, Game of Thrones was released the night before and everybody happened to be sick that day, or your clinic is full and everybody want to watch Game
In
of
the
Thrones.
past, it would just take all the bandwidth and they weren't able to work. Now, the clients, it's a little bit slow, Game of Thrones, so maybe it takes you twice as long, but at least the business can just operate and they can make phone calls.
Okay, and the traffic is broken out to the internet as quickly as possible.
Yeah, recreational
Dump it to the
traffic, we
internet.
just send it out to the internet as soon as possible.
And you use SD-WAN to do that?
All by SD-WAN, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, the next one I want to discuss is, Ernie, I know you're beginning to touch the water on SaaS. What do you see is the growth of SaaS application, IaaS application? Do you see that your customer is beginning to move towards that area, and what kind of integration do they need with Workspace when that happens?
Oh, absolutely. Everyone is looking at SaaS out of the branch office.
Okay.
So that creates a security issue for you immediately, right? So you've either got a firewall on site or you use a Zscaler or some CASB to get you out, right? And then what Citrix has done, which is great with SaaS as well as Microsoft, is they've had a partnership so you can go directly to them and you have less security issues and you have high availability and performance of those SaaS applications. But I don't think in the last year I've talked to anyone who isn't going to cloud first, right? So in some ways that's real, some ways that's kind of a lie. But a lot of the SaaS stuff is straight out the edge. Now, IaaS and PaaS, some people have chosen not to go directly off of the branch office because you tend to end up putting some type of VPX or something in the cloud. And then that's a great solution, except then Microsoft has raised the price over the years, as Chris was saying yesterday, so that now all of a sudden what made sense to get out of your data center, now it's like, uh-oh, I better go back.
Okay.
So the point of that diatribe is we see that, the XaaS as I call it, but not SaaS, going to some apps are in the data center, some apps are in the cloud, and you have to do an app profile, have to do understand your traffic before you do that. Now the great news is, as Sony just said, the application will tell you the flow, will tell the amount of traffic, so you can put it in and then make some decisions as you go of which one should go directly to the cloud and which one should stay in your data center. But I haven't talked to a single customer that's not doing that.
Not doing that. Now, Ruth, how you design your network, you have one big firewall, and then you have a bunch of distributed firewall for this customer. Can you share that?
Yeah, we're all managing it centrally from one space, because in the past where you would have to manage every box themselves, we're using the management solution to just have one point of management to manage all the appliances. So that's a big benefit in IT operations, not having to do all the different configurations per box.
So for the branches, do you use the integrated firewall capability of our SD-WAN? That's good enough?
That's good enough, yeah.
Okay.
I think for most customers at branches, the integrated firewall is good enough. If you need more, the best part with Citrix SD-WAN is that you also have the network virtualization platform, where you can run a virtual Palo Alto, for example, up. So that's really great.
Great, thank you. So the next one, now that we've looked at how to deliver application, the next one is really key here, is the deployment. What if you have multi-sites, right? Now, you'll get different perspective from a do-it-yourself like VCA and then from the managed providers. And I want to present the pros and cons. So Citrix has got a global network of partners, right? We do have Citrix service providers. We also have the super experts in SD-WAN that we call MSPs. We also partner with telcos. And when it comes to the management system, you have a breadth of options. You can either install it in the Citrix cloud and we provision the service to you, or the managed service provider provision the service to you, or you can have it on-prem. And all this can manage boxes in the branches, can manage your cloud connectivity, and also can control some of the services that you have. So let's start with you, maybe Ernie, why do you think managed SD-WAN is something customers should look at versus DIY?
Oh yeah, look, you're in business for something probably different than networking. Even though everyone here is networking, your company is probably doing something different than networking. So in the SD-WAN space, a managed SD-WAN allows you to focus more on the strategic things, more on meeting the needs of the business than it is on the application, not application, but the day-to-day management of the network. Remember in the route switch, you've got to tune it all the time. You have any issues, you've got to be, it's finicky, so you have to be watching it all the time. With SD-WAN, you don't have to do that, right? However, when you look at managing an SD-WAN, if you have a lot of sites or distributed sites, or you have a lot of apps or a lot of connectivity, especially in the broadband space, I don't think anyone here who has cable doesn't have outages all the time, right? That's the last thing you want to be dealing with. And if you do it, you're going to have a number of people you probably don't have right now. Your staff will have to increase. So you come to a managed services provider, we have a large staff of people that handle many customers, and we can handle your issues day in, day out, and manage it with you. The other thing we do is we have co-managed models. So if you're uncomfortable with us managing your policy framework, your packet forwarding, your queues, we can do that with you. We can even give you read-write access to that framework, and through change management, we can work together. So when I look at it, the economics of it and the ease of use, and then what your time is really used for, I, of course, as the MSP guy up here, will tell you, I think it's the best model. However, as Chris will tell you, it's not the only model. Sometimes it's better for the customer to manage it, right? But if you look at anything, you're going to be, SD-WAN is a managed service now. Even if you're doing it internally, SD-WAN is a managed service. And MSPs are really good at doing that for you as well as with you.
Ruud, you got a perspective of this particular customer that sort of underestimate the network operation requires, the staffing, and then the security operation required and the staffing. So what did they do?
So when we were in the project, they first said we're going to manage it ourselves because you did the design, you did the implementation, looks easy, we'll do it ourselves. They soon came back on that decision because really, like you said, right now they're not managing their MPLS network. It's already done by us. And they don't want to waste any time. So they said, well, you just manage it for us. Also because if you want to do your management properly from a networking perspective with broadband, you need 24/7. You want to know if there's a brownout, if there's something down. You don't want to come into the office and realize like, oh, one of my links is down, I have to call, etc. Now, the second part is about security. I think almost everybody thinks right now security is one of the important things within IT. If you go to work and you watch for security events and all those kind of things, when you're done with your shift, then nobody's watching anymore. So a hacker will just keep on going. They don't sleep. They're also 24/7.
Hackers don't sleep.
No. So
too bad.
Lots of caffeine.
We're offering our customers a network operations center for 24/7 support, security operations center for 24/7, so they don't have to worry about anything.
Yeah, especially now. When
so we let them choose. We can do whatever, they can choose whatever they want. But really, if you really want to don't worry anymore, then the best thing is managed.
And especially given the complexity of multi-vector attacks now, it requires so many different
if you look
products.
at how far they have come to get into networks, they're highly specialized.
Yeah, their sophistication certainly seem to outpace innovation in anything else. They always find ways to do it.
And don't forget, broadband is a shared medium, so hackers come on and off of that.
Directly to the
you
internet.
don't even know where they are until they start hitting your
Right.
devices.
We do have the stateful firewall and the LS-NET that can mask your infrastructure from the prying eyes of the internet, and the transport get encapsulated, even if it's site-to-site connectivity over MPLS is actually encapsulated, encrypted. So it's a secure transmission, but it's always good to have another layer of security protection to prevent the upper layer attacks. That's true. Now, Chris, you have sort of a hybrid model where your workspace is managed and your network, for now, with 20 sites, you're doing it yourself.
Yeah, for us it was, I mean, honestly, when we did the proof of concept, our network engineers were so taken at how easy it was and simple, it really just became a no-brainer to do the deployment ourselves, because we were prepared to work with an MSP for that. And I think our thought on this right now is we really want to take a look at all the different pieces here, and certainly the security component is one that we probably will want to work with an MSP on, but I think we're going to try to take a look at it from a granular perspective and figure out what parts can we manage ourselves as we get more experience with the product, and what parts does it make sense to work with a trusted partner to be able to, be watching it 24/7 when we're not. And really for us, I mean, Citrix, you guys did such a good job building it. It was really simple to deploy. It is a really robust product.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So how is the, in terms of deployment, are your deployment mostly in one region or you're multi-regional?
Yeah, so the deployment we're doing it we've prioritized our clinics based on how important the clinics are to us. So they're really going across the country. But what we're finding is just with the configuration tools and the cloud pieces, to just be able to ship that device to the clinic and then walk them through over the phone, unplugging a couple of wires and plugging them in, it's just up in a matter of minutes and it works really well. And then for us, the deployment strategy is the first part is to really get SD-WAN out there, because we feel that once we get that in and doing its job, once we get the MPLS connection upgraded, even though we're changing vendors, it becomes a very simple thing to just unplug the wire from one, plug in the wire from the other, and the SD-WAN box doesn't even skip a beat. You don't have to inject all the routes. It already knows where all the traffic is going. It just sees the new route to the data center. It creates that tunnel, and then it starts using it as part of its prioritization.
Because it's talking to the head-end unit, the MCN.
Yep.
Now, Ernie, do you recommend using the zero-touch deployment capability?
Yeah, we do.
And how is that saving you time?
So the way it saves us time, but really what we can do, if we use zero touch, we pass the savings on to you, because we can pull all the staging, warehousing, and configuration out, ship directly from either a WD or Citrix directly to you. What we are doing now is we're doing pilot sites, and we'll agree with you on the pilot sites. We'll run those through the staging facility, make sure it works, then we'll send it directly to site. That's appliance-based. If you're doing NFV, we're working now with everyone to figure out how to do that zero-touch provisioning. We think that's the future. That cuts the cost out, and then you talk about deployment time. As soon as the circuit's there, the device is already there, and you're up and running.
Yeah, the device call home, get the configuration, and that's
done. And we have remote support out of our dock, which is what Ruud talked about, knocking a sock together, that we just wait for it to pop up in the orchestrator, and okay, everything's good, let it go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How about you, Ruud? Do you use that capability, the zero
Definitely,
touch?
because it saves so much time. If we look at our healthcare customer, in the past they would bring out a router, copy paste the config, change some things. They would maybe take around an hour because some things would maybe go wrong. Now we spin them up configs are done within 5 minutes, because we can just clone the site, adjust the IP addresses, and all done through SD-WAN center. It gets pushed out. They only really need to put in the box, connect it to the broadband, and it's spun up. And it also eliminates all the issues that if you have configured your router manually, maybe you miss something, or so.
Misconfiguration possibility is a lot less now.
Yeah.
I really like the scenario when you mentioned about this one site that's under the gun to come online. So they pop in the SIM, they bring it up, they use the zero touch, and once it's up, it turned out, what did they use it for? Recreational traffic?
A lot of recreational traffic, yeah.
Instead of productive traffic, okay. So after all the hassle they put you through,
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the other thing, Sonny, I'll point out, we did a 2,600 site rollout. It took 10,000 visits over 13 months. So imagine sending all those devices, because it was HA, so it was 5,200 devices. That was a lot of money and a lot of time. The zero touch provisioning, I just send it. My techs show up on site, circuit's there, we put it together. We probably could have done it in half that time had we had something. That was back in the day when zero touch was a farce, and now it's real.
Yeah.
The other piece from our perspective was also just configuration changes become very simple too with SD Center. You're able to just, if something changes, you're able to change that configuration, blow it out to the whole network, and it happens in almost instantly.
That is the nice thing about having a SD-WAN. It's essentially like a spine architecture, right? You have the top of the spine, you have top of the stack, and you have all these leaves. So when the top of the stack changes, everything gets propagated down. Versus, the old model where you have distributed routers everywhere. You go, oh, wait a minute, I've got to make that config over there. And then you type one IP wrong, you're suddenly down.
Game over.
So, right. This is my last slide. And I would like to have them share their perspective in terms of their success metrics. How do they measure success thus far? And what are the outcome? What are some of the best practices, lesson learned? If I can start with you, Chris, on experience and user productivity, what do you see?
Yeah,
and then we'll jump on the cost saving.
Yeah, for us, we always get wrapped up in the metrics with the numbers, but for me, I'm more of a, what's the user experience feel like? And I will tell you, everywhere that we've deployed SD-WAN right now, the user experience has been much improved. I mean, dramatically improved, where they're thrilled that they have the product. So that part for us has been fantastic. And then,
how about in terms of on the backhaul side, what kind of efficiency gain have you seen in terms of megabit per second improvement, and then?
Yeah, all the metrics look much improved. We're able, the throughput is faster. Every metric that we have is looking much better. This is even before we increase the bandwidth at the clinic level. So we're expecting to see another bump in performance when that happens.
So you're going from 1.5 meg MPLS to 5 meg MPLS plus 15 meg broadband for a total of 20 or 25 from 1.5 to 20.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's going to be great.
And
then also in terms of cost savings, if we just roll onto that, for us, we were really able to deploy the hardware and the upgrade to the circuits and everything really cost neutral for our deployment. So it really was.
So
it was a no-brainer. It was really a no-brainer.
13x in capacity bump for
and
cost
one
neutral.
of the ways we did that was we did eliminate our WAN op product that we had, which is a pretty expensive product. So that support went to pay for some of that, but it was really a no-brainer for our company.
How about you, Ruth? Your customer went from 10 meg to 4 LTE for recreational traffic.
Yeah, and when the broadband was finally delivered, all locations now have 100 meg of just plain broadband, where in the past they would only have like 10, 20, max 30 MPLS max. So their bandwidth has grown exponentially, and also the user experience, like you mentioned, they really see that users are a lot more happier. They're not calling that often anymore, so they're really happy with that.
So you get about 8x increase for you, that's what you're seeing.
And also the fact that you're not depending on an ISP anymore for delivering on time for new sites. If you have the need, you can just connect it through LTE and provide connectivity to the branch office, where in the past you would just have to tell the business, well, we're sorry, they can't make it.
So moving to the next thing, how has it, do your customers take on more users then? And more sites are connected? How many sites are connected now? I remember it was in several phases.
Yeah, so we first started out with the POC, which was just a data center, one branch. Then they started with 6, and right after that they bought in total 20 locations we're on right now. So they bought the rest for that. And that's also one of the great things with Citrix SD-WAN is that we build it for the future, because they see an increase in bandwidth demand. Now, instead of replacing hardware, we just bought the 410s, started at the entry level, and they can just, through license upgrades, grow their bandwidth usage.
Awesome. So the next thing is, Ernie, you see 5G going to change SD-WAN as well, or it's actually going to complement SD-WAN and make it easier. Share a little bit of a perspective in our last 30 seconds here.
Yeah, so when I look at the growth and scale of SD-WAN, if you put in SD-WAN, you just put in something that's going to take you far into the 5G future, whatever it comes out to be. And all the multi-access at the edge, right? So all of the, whatever it is, Zigbee, ultra-wideband, whatever is dreamed up after 5G, as we were discussing yesterday, all you have to do is take an Ethernet cable and plug it in. And so now, all of a sudden, you don't have to do all this route switch stuff. You can just take advantage of 5G immediately, and that's fantastic. in the cost structure, and then what you can do. And then this is all about meeting the needs of the business. You will be able to meet the needs of the business like that. And that's opportunity, cost savings, that's everything.
You use a 5G converter to Ethernet, plug it into SD-WAN.
They'll probably just bring it to you on Ethernet.
Awesome.
You know, basically the receiver, that's all you got.
Okay. Well, with that, if you have any questions, they'll be here for another 10 minutes or so. So feel free to ask them with your questions. And can I get a show of hands and thank you for their time and insights. Again, thank you very much, guys, for your time and your time spent. We have only one more SD-WAN session after this one, and that's at 3:30. Check it out. The presentation and the recorded session will be available. The recorded session actually is already available now. If you want to download that, the information is up there. And if you have time, please fill in the survey so that we know how to improve it for the next session. And thank you very much for coming here. And thank you very much for attending Synergy.